It's my good pleasure to be here, and I'll tell you why I think tonight is very important. And I'm just going to say it, and then I'll shut up because you're not supposed to show your prejudice. But when we have finally 4 men on the platform tonight, the reason I think that this is so important, and I know these guys are getting tired because this is the 5th one that I've watched you guys have, and I can't imagine how many you've done. I believe that out of this pool of gentlemen is the next senator of the state of Indiana. So. I wondered for a while, I didn't know how Mr. Ellsworth would fare. Then we had to vote on health care, and I was like, see ya. But it is important, and I do think it's good. And I hope tonight that we're good on our question asking. Let's don't come with diabolical agendas and see who we can hang up on something. Let's ask good questions. Let's make them nice and crisp and short, and let's give these people the opportunity to give us the answers that we really need. We're going to go into booths here in a couple of weeks in the primary, and then in the fall, we're going to pull real levers with real people's names next to them, and it's a real decision. So let's make sure that we know what it is we're doing. It's my good pleasure to be here with you tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well, I guess we can go ahead and get started. We have 2 microphones on each side of the room, and we'll have runners take them to whoever has a question. So if you have a question, you can go ahead and stand up.
That's a short.
Wow.
Yeah, this
Let's take the lady in the white.
The lady in the white right down the right was the first.
Actually, this is 2 questions, but they are related, so I really need to get an answer to both. First of all, are you determined to nullify the Obamacare bill? And secondly, what would you put in its place?
Okay, is that directed first of all to any one person? If not, we'll just start at this end and move down. Is that all right?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Are we going to nullify it? And if we were to nullify it, what would we replace it with?
Yes, we are going to kill the bill. We will. First of all, I think it will end up in the United States Supreme Court, and I'm confident, and I've been saying for several weeks now that President Bush, who I had utmost respect for him, but the thing he did right the most was he batted 1,000 on the United States Supreme Court, and thank God for that. Thank God for Chief Justice Roberts and for Justice Alito. I think Kennedy will side with us. I believe it will be a 5-4 decision, but I believe the health care bill will be struck down as unconstitutional. Now, let's say that doesn't happen. And some people say you're not going to get 67 votes to repeal it. I think we can, because first of all, I think that America is going to send a message to Washington in November, and I do believe we'll have a majority in the House and in the Senate, and I believe there will be some Democrats who will see the writing on the wall, and I think we will be able to convince them, if necessary, to join with us and repeal that health care bill. If that is not possible, we can defund it, and when we defund it, we render it useless. Now, what can we do? First of all, we have to go back to the drawing board. And we have to have this discussion with the right people in place. The Republicans did the right thing by not going to the bargaining table. For every one good thing they would have gotten in that bill, the Democrats would have put in 2 bad things. And so good conservative Republicans come from the premise that the government's not the solution, government's the problem. We must protect our free market principles, even as they relate to health care. So solution number 1 is let's lower the state lines so people can buy insurance across state lines. That will go a long way to introducing more competition. If you can buy Geico auto insurance nationally, why can't you buy health care nationally? And so we need to change that, and I believe that's where we start. Secondly, we have to reform Medicare and Medicaid. The chairman of my board is the chairman of my campaign committee is actually the chairman of the board of Reed Hospital, and I wish he were here tonight to talk to you about challenges that they face because of Medicare and Medicaid. So let's go back to the drawing board and fix Medicare and Medicaid. We can and we must.
Mr. Bain, do you care to choose?
Certainly. Yes, we must kill this bill because, in fact, this legislation will kill our economy, period. It has killed our constitutional sovereignty, and it has killed our individual liberties. You know, I'm the only candidate up here that's actually read the bill. It's tremendously, it's a terrible piece of legislation. The bottom line, if I can get one thing across here, is that it does take away the personal relationship we have between ourselves and our physicians. We no longer can determine between ourselves and our physician what kind of care we will receive or if we can receive it. We now have a bureaucratic board that will determine our economic value to society. That's the law of the land. A bureaucratic board will determine what each of our economic value is to society. When did we become that kind of people? When did we become that kind of people, friends? You know, as Ronald Reagan said, yes, what is it, personnel is policy. We've had people in both sides of the aisle that have allowed us to slip into becoming a culture of death, period. We must pull this legislation out in any way, shape, or form. Of course, Don hit all the bases there, which is true. But we must pull this legislation out, not get in any kind of case of bargaining or working with it at all. The federal government should not be involved in any way, shape, or form with our health care. The federal government should not be involved in any way, shape, or form. I'm asking you to send me there to get the federal government out of our doctor's examination room. That's a personal decision between ourselves. If anything, decisions should be made at a state level in any kind of government agency. But the federal government should not be discussing it. And yes, you know, being a free market guy, a businessman, I believe the competition is good. If I'm the only plumber in town, do you think my prices are going to be high or are they going to be low? It works the same way in the health insurance industry. So yes, we need to have care across state lines, and also we need to add tort reform in there as well.
Mr. Hosta?
Yes, we must repeal Obamacare. It's likely that Republicans will take control of the House of Representatives as well as possibly even the United States Senate. With that scenario, it's unlikely that we will have the necessary 2/3 votes in either the House or the Senate to override veto of the President. But the strategy should be to continually send President Obama legislation after legislation after legislation that he will likely veto, but will likewise keep this issue in front of the American people. It's a scenario that we played out with then President Clinton and welfare reform. We passed welfare reform when we first took over the House of Representatives and the Senate in 1995. He vetoed it. We sent a second package of welfare reform to him in late 1995. He vetoed it again. And then in 1996, when we sent him a third opportunity to end welfare as we know it, his assistant, Dick Morris, reminded him of his campaign pledge, and he ultimately signed it into law, and we ended welfare as it was known from its inception. Now, I'm not suggesting that Barack Obama is going to be willing to sign into law repeal of his crown jewel legislative accomplishment up until this point, but what we can do is to continue the debate, continue the discussion with the American people so that they understand in order to repeal health care in November of 2012, they must repeal the presidency of Barack Obama. So that is, and then in January of 2013, we can begin the process immediately of doing that. What do we do to replace this travesty? We expand association health plans. We create health marts. We allow for purchase of health insurance policies across state line. Tort reform to end the defensive medicine, the rising costs as a result of that.
All right, thank you. We'll take our next question from the gentleman in the back in the suit, and then we'll go to, looks like a couple here right in the middle.
My question is specifically for Mr. Hostetler. In your 12 years in the Congress, you maintained an extremely conservative record. You repeatedly submitted legislation to repeal the income tax, get us out of the UN, and I'm sure you did that over the objection of the much more left-leaning party leadership. As we look in terms of